Hey, friendos, welcome back to the Four Lights Podcast. I am, as always, Steve here, and I'm joined once again by Big Jeff. Big Jeff, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm feeling great. I got an awesome night of sleep. Yesterday we did the pilot episode thing, and I got a lot of sleep, and I'm hydrating right now. What do you got going on over there?
I got a little La Croix.
What is
a little
it?
tangerine La Croix.
Tangerine La Croix?
It sounds fancy, but they make it in Michigan, so it's just marketing. It's all marketing.
But there's nothing fancy about Michigan, people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe.
I've never been to Michigan. It might
Yeah,
be
me neither. So anyways, this is, of course, the Four Lights Podcast. We talk about Star Trek here. We're reviewing every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. That should, if I do the math on that correctly, that should mean we're going to get like 2 seasons done per year.
Okay.
And it ran for 7 seasons, so hopefully we'll have a good like 3.5 year run on this. And then after that, we can get into the Deep Space Nine.
Great. Sounds good to me.
It's like a whole 10-year plan.
Yeah.
We will not, however, review Enterprise. Fuck that show.
Terrible show.
Fuck that shit.
Also drinking coffee, by the way.
That's good. I'm not doing that Enterprise shit, man.
Yeah, terrible show. I would do Voyager. I'm into it.
Oh, I like Voyager.
I thought Voyager was a good show.
So here's my breakdown of Star Trek. I say that Next Generation is... Did the sun just go up or something? Why are we bright all of a sudden? Hold on a second. Let's cut the stuff out.
I could drop the shades outside, too. It's going to block a lot of light. Or I can take the white cloth and put it up on the inside, and it'll soften everything.
There we go. I just did that.
Here.
Here's my breakdown of Star Trek. Next Generation is iconic. All right, that's like Elvis tier.
Sure.
Okay, DS9, in my opinion, is technically the best. It told one long story. There was a lot of serialization going.
Yes.
The roster was super deep.
The mythology that it created was a lot more significant.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Voyager, in my opinion, was the most pure fun.
Yeah.
And
Very fun
tons of fan service. So they did the Borg stuff. They had Q on their episodes too. So Voyager was the most fun. All right. And then Enterprise was just absolute shit.
What do you feel about the original show?
That's to me, the original show is retroactive fanfic. I don't think it's actual canon. For me, started at Wrath of Khan.
That's a hot take. Boy,
I think it's.
You're throwing down the gauntlet with that.
I can't watch it. I can't fucking watch it, man.
It's very charming. That's like saying you can't watch the original Adam West Batman. Sure, it's a little campy and silly, but that's the time period.
It's so boring and it's so long. Every episode feels like it's
good episodes
3
there.
hours long.
There's good episodes of the original show.
There's one where they travel back in time and meet that girl, I think, right?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be good.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I can't watch it. I don't know why. It's so boring to me. So I don't consider it canon.
You don't have to watch it.
I don't. Yeah, but no. From Wrath of Khan on,
which is still Wrath of Khan is probably the best Star Trek movie. It's a fantastic.
I think
film.
I think it's true.
In its own right, it's amazing.
I even look. The motion picture's good. It's just I wouldn't recommend. It's anybody coming to me saying, "Hey, how do I get into Star Trek?" I'm not going to recommend the motion picture.
The first one?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, talk about long and boring.
Yeah, exactly. So give me like Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. Great. Get into that.
Yeah.
It's immediate. It's great. Anyways, today's episode we're going to talk about Star Trek Next Generation Episode 2, The Naked Now. This was actually originally based off of an early original series fanfic episode called The Naked Time, where the Enterprise, and the only reason I know the plot is because Riker literally tells us the plot in this episode of Next Generation.
Yeah.
So I didn't do any research into the Naked Time. But from what I gather, the Enterprise, the original Enterprise, came across, they were like researching a star of some sort. And that star started, the gravitational forces, which is kind of a cool concept. The gravitational forces started fucking with the water molecules in the brain, altered them in a way that would make the crew behave in a drunken manner.
Yeah.
And apparently Roddenberry liked the concept as a way to get across the various wants and needs of the main characters in the show. This is only the second episode, and so he felt this would be a good way. Apparently, I was reading up the Memory Alpha entry mentions that Roddenberry understood that basically ripping off an old Star Trek episode would have the risks of people thinking he's ripping off an old Star Trek episode, but he felt those risks were worth it, given that he thought this episode was a good way to, they say when you're drunk, your inhibitions go away. Well, it's factually true. I know this because I've been drunk plenty of times.
We both have.
Exactly. And then like your true persona emerges.
And there's some medical basis of it too. A lot of the reasons that you act the way that you do when you're drunk is because you're dehydrated. So something fucking with water molecules would be maybe akin to dehydration or akin to the medical symptoms that you have when you're drunk or intoxicated. So.
Right. So yeah, there could be some factual basis there. So anyways, the episode kicks off. In a nutshell, this is sort of it's there's a lot of comedy in this episode.
Yes.
I'll put it this way. I'm not really sure how effective it was in really telling us who the characters were. I don't know if it really accomplished that goal, but it's a fun episode to look back on because who doesn't like an episode where everybody... Next Generation is a relatively serious show. When it's at its best, it mixes a great blend of drama and comedy. This was very heavy on the comedy because when you get a bunch of drunk people together, it's going to be comedy.
The comedy at its best is usually pretty subtle and dry. And
right.
character based. So they didn't really have a lock. Most of the actors didn't really have a lock on the characters at this point, which is understandable.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's only 2 episodes in, really. Right. But that said, I will say this is definitely not one of my favorite episodes, but the actors are definitely having a good time.
That's true, especially Johnson, Patrick Stewart,
Patrick Johnson, yeah,
especially Patrick
Johnson Stewart,
the lead actor,
John Paul Stewart, just mix them all up.
Anyways, the episode starts off with the Enterprise on its way to rendezvous with the Tsiolkovsky. That's probably going to be the only time I say the word Tsiolkovsky.
SS Tsiolkovsky.
The U.S. It's the SS or the USS?
USS? I don't know.
Tsiolkovsky. Is there not a silent T there? Because Picard, I felt, was sort of half pronouncing a silent T there.
Yeah, it's one of the more awkwardly named ships in Star Trek continuity.
What is it named at? Who is Tsiolkovsky?
I don't know. It's interesting. I want to see if there's...
Anyway, because... half the time, Picard is pronouncing it with like a kind of a T sound at the beginning. Tsiolkovsky. Oh, there you go. Who is Konstantin Tsiolkovsky? Oh, okay.
Soviet rocket scientist.
Oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
All right, that makes sense, yeah.
Jeez, writers, come on, man. Dial it down a bit. Call it the USS Konstantin. So anyways, they're on their way to meet this ship. It's a science vessel doing some research on, it was a planet or something? Was it a planet or a star? It was a planet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's like, it's a planet. I think it's about to explode or something. Maybe it's a star. I don't know. I don't have that written here. Anyways, they communicate with them. They're like, hey, it's Tsiolkovsky. What's going on? And then in return, they get some really, sounds like there's some tomfoolery going on in the background. Some people seemingly having some sort of rager. And then a very sultry voice comes over the intercom and says, hey, Enterprise, we're just come on over here and we'll fucking blow you or something. Like it's something very like sexy, like 1-900 number ish, right? And so then they hear like this big ass explosion. Everybody freaks out, and then it cuts out.
Well, I will say there's like a background voice of a male background voice who sounds like he's very drunk. And he shouts something again of, yeah, come on, yeah, do it, like very joyful.
Right, yeah.
So the visual picture is here's this sultry woman saying, oh yeah, Enterprise, come on over. And then there's a group of other people that are doing something, and one of them is some dude who's hammered, and he's like, yeah, do it, like, just like, yeah, hold my beer, I'll do a backflip, like that kind of thing.
Right. Or it's like the scene out of Requiem for a Dream at the end when they're doing the ass-to-ass thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that. But it turns out what he was egging the other guy on to do was open an emergency hatch.
Correct.
Which I didn't realize they had emergency hatches on bridges of starships. Yeah. This is like, I have not noticed this on the Enterprise.
I think every starship is kind of different. So
yeah, it could be.
The Tsiolkovsky had an emergency hatch.
So Data is able to extrapolate what he heard and tell us all what happened. He says, Captain, what we just heard seems to be impossible. I believe it was the emergency hatch being blown. And so they're like, oh, crap, that means they're all dead. So anyways, the away team beams over, And in fact, it does appear to be that everybody on the bridge is dead. The entire ship, they're going down the hallway, and the ship looks like it's just a big party house. Data even says there are indications here of what humans would call a wild party.
Yeah.
So Data is still stupid.
But Data doesn't know certain things like the word Snoop, but he knows what a wild party is.
Right, yeah. Right, exactly. Well, he's learning. He's had a week on the Enterprise now.
It's not just a wild party, too. It's just like a bunch of naked frozen people, which is crazy.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Everybody's like, look like they're in the deep freeze, but they also don't have any clothes on.
It's like an Arctic version of Caligula.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So, like, they look through the window. There's like a window from the door to the bridge, conveniently. And they notice that, yeah, in fact, the hatch is open. So everybody's been blown out. Data corrects Commander Riker on saying, no, they haven't. They didn't all get sucked out. They got blown out. And Riker again looks at Data like he just wants to punch him. He doesn't, because Data could probably kill him in a heartbeat. Yar is down in engineering. She says everybody is frozen there. LaForge goes into somebody's crew quarters. And that's the scene that you described. It's a bunch of, it's sort of like a Rembrandt orgiastic drawing, a painting, if you will. Everybody's frozen, completely covered. It's all white and frosty in there. And there's you see kind of a side butt from a dude. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just properly placed naked people. Nobody's like mid-coital, or anything like that. But they're all sort of chilling there naked. Geordi opens up a shower, one of their sonic showers, which I'm still not sure how those work. And a lady falls out. She's frozen, but she was just in the shower. Riker then says, "Captain, I've got my report. Everybody's dead." And then Riker's like, "There's 88," or Picard's like, "There's 88 people on that ship." And Riker says, "I know. They're all dead." So that's your intro.
Not a big ship, too, by the way. 88 people. It's a pretty small ship.
Yeah, it looks small, too, when they come up on it. It's a science vessel, so there's a bunch of families rolling around on it. So that's good. I mean, it's good that there was they got into some sketchy territory. There was a bunch of kids running around there.
Well, yeah.
That wouldn't have been good. So anyways, we open up the actual episode with Picard going into Crusher's office. And she's like, they've transmitted some tricorder information, and she can't figure anything out. So I have no idea what's going on. At this point, Picard makes a really, really bad judgment move. He decides to just go ahead and transport the away team back over to the ship.
Yeah. He does say transport them back with maximum decontamination settings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just thinking, the risk involved.
Yeah, it was a bad idea.
I mean, take them to quarantine them.
Quarantine
them, exactly.
Transport them back to some sort of cargo hold that's totally locked off from the rest of the ship.
Here's the thing. That's kind of throughout this episode, there is way too many touching. There's way too much touching.
Yeah.
People are just touching people. People who are well aware that they have something are just going around touching everybody else's faces, their necks, their ears. So instead of quarantining the away team, he does what you said. He sets the teleporter for maximum contamination. Geordi is the first to get examined because he's starting to sweat profusely. Crusher starts to examine him, and she's like, "Man, you're fine. Everything's great with you, Geordi, but you're sweating. What is the deal with that?" And he says, "Maybe I'm sweating because you have it too hot in here."
It's very angry.
He goes off on Crusher, super hardcore. And then she's like, "Well, that was weird. Why did you do that?" So something's obviously wrong with Geordi. He's acting, I guess, kind of drunk and ill-tempered because of the temperature in sickbay. Because that's one of the symptoms of this thing is you feel like you're really, really hot.
You feel like you're really hot.
And so that's why everybody turned up the AC quite a bit. So anyways, Crusher then calls Picard, says she's confining LaForge to sickbay. Once again, she doesn't put him in quarantine. He obviously has what everybody else has. And if you confine somebody to quarantine, they can't just get up and walk away, which is what he eventually does. Riker wants Data to look up some info because he says he read something at some point about somebody taking a shower while clothed.
So this is the detail that sticks out in Riker's head. It's like, oh, somebody took a shower with their clothes on? That's insane. When would that ever happen?
Yeah, because Riker, I mean, seemingly, we can extrapolate from that. Riker has been, he's the ladies' man on the ship.
Sure.
It's been more than insinuated several times that he enjoys being on the holodeck for sexual pleasure.
Yes.
So, he probably finds, this is another great opportunity to be naked. Why would anybody ever be naked?
Yeah.
Or clothed in a shower?
Riker writes it off and he's like, oh, yeah, I was reading about other ships named Enterprise, is what he says.
Right.
But really, I'm going to guess he was just looking up information on people showering. He's just like...
Exactly.
Like, was it like... computer, bring me up stories about other ships named the Enterprise? Is that more likely, or is it Riker at the computer like, computer, tell me stories about people showering?
Tell me stories.
Yeah, he wants to hear about
before
showering.
He goes to bed. Yeah, right. Because you got to figure, given what we saw with the mini clip show that he saw in the first episode, maybe he's thinking also, computer, do you have any footage of people on various starships taking showers?
Yeah.
Given that you seemingly have cameras everywhere.
Which is creepy.
It's Riker. He did it, not me. Let's see here. So yeah, Data's like, why? Okay, that's like even for my crazy brain. And Riker even brings that up because they had tested Data earlier, and he was like, Crusher was saying, Data, you're a medical marvel or something like that. And he was like, in fact, I've been in many medical textbooks. Because he's a one-of-a-kind, being. And at this point, Data, when Riker's asking him to look at some shit in the computer, he's like, man, that's like, that's not going to be easy. And Riker says, well, it should be easy. That brain of yours has been in a bunch of textbooks. And Data gets self-conscious all of a sudden. He's like, oh my God, do you think Crusher thinks that I was being like, ego-driven when I said that? Did you think that I was bragging? And he was like, no, just fucking do it, man. Stop being weird. Anyways, next up, we had back in sickbay. Geordi waking up, and he just leaves.
Yeah. So that's the weak-ass confinement that they have. Like, what does confined to sickbay mean? Like, she's just like, hey, you're sick. You might become delirious, but just stay around here. Like, they don't station anybody to keep an eye on him. Nothing. He just walks out.
Yeah, is there any evidence that she actually told him not to leave on top of that?
Or also, like, they're in a space ship with like a lot of technology.
Yeah.
They know where everybody is at all times.
Right.
Shouldn't she immediately get an alert from the computer that's like, Dr. Crusher, you confined Geordi to sickbay. He just left.
He just up and took off, dude. So, but no, he just leaves. Let's see here. Crusher freaks out because she realized what happens. She leaves to go find him, but he's nowhere to be found. She contacts Picard. Picard puts Tasha Yar in the situation. She's like, security, go find Geordi. Cut to Wesley Crusher, and Geordi is with him. At this point, Geordi seems totally fine.
Geordi looks totally fine. He's not sweaty. He's not angry. He's just perfectly fine.
It's casual conversation with Wes. Wes has created like a little anti-grav beam thing. He's like, Geordi, look at this thing. And then he also says, oh, by the way, look at this also. And it's this little gizmo that he presses a button, and it gives it's a Picard soundboard. It says, engage. He says, Wesley, Crusher, go to the science station, something like that. And I'm thinking, and he's like, it's so. He literally says this. He says, I made this so I can imagine that I'm on the bridge. And all the little sound bites are all just grumpy Picard barking orders at him. That's what he fetishizes.
Yeah, it's weird. Is
Picard barking orders at him.
He's a weird kid.
He is weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. He literally made a soundboard. Like a World Wide Web flash soundboard. And he says it too. He says, I assembled this with recordings that were in the ship's logs. I pieced together different sayings of Picard that I could find in logs and made this. Which is borderline sociopathic.
I wouldn't even say borderline.
Yeah, it's full on sociopathic.
I would say it's like past.
It's creepy, yeah.
It's really creepy. And Geordi, who is a professional, an actual officer in Starfleet, laughs and says, whoa, Picard sure has to be happy that you're on his side. You should be like, Wes, no, dude, you can't. That's horribly irresponsible and massively weird.
Yeah, it's at best inappropriate.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that's what Wes does with his free time.
Yeah.
It's weird. Anyways, at that point, Jordy gets nauseous, not because of the weird fucking Wes soundboard, but just because he's got that drunk disease. He lumbers out the door. Next up, he's in the conference room. Tasha Yar comes in, and she's like, Jordy, you need to go back to sickbay. And he starts getting all weird, saying, I want to see like a normal, and he starts touching Tasha Yar's face, and he's all getting kind of inappropriate with her. But
this is fully inappropriate.
Yeah.
This is where the actual sexual harassment of this episode starts. And it doesn't stop.
No, it actually goes.
It keeps going.
It goes from 0 to 100 pretty quick. Yeah. So yeah, he's like, man, I really want to see like a real like a human being, like a normal person. And then he like touches her face, which at that point, like the touching is too much.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Like they're coworkers.
Yeah.
That's super not right.
Yeah, I know. Like it's 2018. You can't do that.
But it's 23, whatever.
23, 20. I know. Like
several hundred years in the future.
So but you got to figure things on the HR side probably reset in 2079 when guards would just murder each other.
They're doing coke and killing each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I figure there's been some starts and stops.
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
Anyways, but she's nice about it. She's understanding that he's messed up. So she takes him to sickbay. She's like, "Come on, Jordy, let's get out of here." In sickbay, meanwhile, Dr. Crusher is insistent this is not a disease. She is insisting that this is not some sort of chemical problem with the brain. She says, this is probably emotional health, or this is probably a mental illness of some sort. Mm-hmm. People are getting super emotional. She doesn't know what it is. At this point, given that you know that Jordy is on the ship, he's back in sickbay, it's quarantine him. And everything will be totally fine.
Oh, yeah.
Everything will be great. They can look this up. But even at that point, they don't endeavor to do that. People are still touching him. Let's see here. Riker and Data at that point do find out, because Riker and Data are having a little bit of banter. Data mentions something about the Enterprise, which spurs Riker to think, Enterprise, let's look specifically for Enterprise. I was looking through old stories of old Enterprises, and that's where I saw the story about somebody showering while they were clothed. Data figures it out. Picard tells Crusher that they found the problem and a cure, and they're sending it to medical now. Data gives Picard a really weird look, because Crusher's like, wait, this is going to work? And Picard says, absolutely. So I don't know if Data thought that Picard was a little too enthusiastic and maybe he was getting drunk too. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but Data gave him a really weird stink eye. In Troy's apartment, or her crew quarters, Tasha Yar, she's acting drunk now because Geordi had touched her face earlier.
Yeah.
Given that Tasha Yar in the previous episode had been so prone to immediate outbursts of violence when anybody like even moved a hand near her, it's kind of surprising that she let Geordi touch her face.
It's very weird.
But she did anyways. Now she's drunk. And she's trying on some really ugly clothes.
Barely clothes. There's like Troy apparently has a collection of odd scarves.
Right.
That Yara is just kind of draping over her existing uniform.
Yeah, she has some loose fabric just laying around. Yeah. And then Tasha Yar's like...
They're not really clothes. It's just loose fabric.
Right. And so, yeah, she's sort of draping herself. And she's like, oh, this could be look cool on me. It's like, well, it's just a tablecloth, dude.
Yeah.
So anyways... Troy then gets on the phone and tells Picard that Tasha Yar is compromised. I have written down here that Data has no idea what any human proverb is. I don't know why I put that there. Next up, probably because they had another moment. The number of times we've talked about Data not understanding a very simple human thing has been so numerous over these first two episodes. Next up, Wes is bugging his mom about his tractor beam. Dr. Crusher then warns Wes about this drunken disease. At this point, if she's really concerned, she should say, listen, stay in our quarters. I'm going to lock the door. Nobody is getting in here because I don't want this to happen to you. And I'm not sure what this fucking beam is you made, but it's probably not going to be good either. Next up, Tasha Yar is walking around engineering looking for somebody to fuck, apparently.
Oh, yeah, instantly.
Yeah, she finds a science officer, I think he's an ensign, and just immediately shoves her tongue down his throat.
He's super into it. All
erotic.
the people in the background are rubbing up on each other like everybody did E, and they're at a rave.
E! I haven't heard that in a while.
What are the kids calling now? Molly?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I hope my kids don't do that shit.
Yeah.
They probably do. Back in engineering, what's that first chief engineer's name?
Chief McDougal.
McDougal. Was she in the pilot?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I pulled her up on Memory Alpha. I think this might be the only episode she was ever in.
Because I know there's like a male chief engineer a couple episodes later, I think. Like a portly guy who has a beard.
Yeah.
And he only shows up for like an episode. And then by season 2, it's just Geordie. He had proven his credentials to the point that he was good. Anyways, the chief engineer is called to the bridge right as Wesley shows up. The assistant chief is summoned to sickbay, and he tells Wes that if he leaves, nobody there is on duty, so nobody could take over engineering. Clearly, this scene is bizarre because the assistant chief says there's nobody here on duty, and there's at least 10 extras who are walking around in the background. Half of them have the yellow engineering shirts. They are all vastly more qualified than Wes to take over
a 15-year-old boy
at engineering. But Wes is like, oh man, if Picard calls for somebody, I'll let you know. That's good enough for this assistant engineer. Probably why we hadn't seen him after this episode. So anyways, it turns out it was a big scam. Wes had his little voice, his soundboard, and he was using that to summon people away from engineering. And then he uses the soundboard to take command of the ship. I think we get that from we're on the bridge, and then they hear, attention everybody, I'm now handing command of the ship over to Wesley Crusher, something like that. So, Wes now has control of the ship. When we come back from commercial, Wesley is now entertaining the engineering staff, who are all drunk and are rubbing up on each other.
Oh, yes.
But they're very entertained by Wesley. He has erected a force field so nobody can get to him. Back on the bridge, Data starts talking about how the rest of the crew on the ship are acting weird. He starts doling out a dirty limerick that he heard from a drunken crew member. He comes this close to saying the word penis. Picard cuts him off. Picard hails Tasha Yar. She responds in a sexy voice, saying, ooh. Picard sends Data to go get Tasha Yar, even though she's in her quarters, seemingly doing no harm. Bringing people out of their quarters probably will only do worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he just wants everybody to intermix. I don't get it. So anyways, he sends Data to go get Tasha Yar. He goes there, and we get one of the most iconic scenes in the history of the show.
Yes.
Tasha Yar is dolled up, all sorts of under booby cleavage.
Yeah.
Her midsection completely
outfit
exposed.
on with it's sort of an exposed diamond.
Yeah.
Like this part here.
Right.
And then down to here. So you can see her abdomen, a little bit of under boobie.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
her hair is kind of slicked back.
She has like a Superman-esque curl.
Superman curl, yeah.
Yeah, going. She looks great. She looks like a million.
It's a good look, actually.
Yeah, it's a great look for her. So anyway, she starts appealing to Data, talking about how since she was 5 years old, she had to be very clever to avoid rape gangs on her home world.
Yeah, it's really dark.
Yeah,
I totally forgot that section.
Yeah.
Where she's talking about how she was abandoned when she was 5. She had to be very crafty to avoid rape gangs.
Yeah.
Which is, boy,
that's heavy shit right there.
Jesus Christ.
That's really dark.
Yeah.
And she's using this as a way to gain. She says, all I want now is love and attention, and she's focusing that on Data, and she's like, hey, do you know how to sex? And Data says his famous phrase, yes, I'm fully functional in a variety of techniques.
Yeah.
She pulls him into the back, and then the implication is they bone. So good for Data. The assumption is he has lost his virginity at this point. Because later on in the season 2 episode Measure of a Man, when he's defending himself, he has, and Tasha's long dead, he has a little hologram of just her image. I think it's his version of a fap folder, because they're like
it's just her image, like from
fully clothed.
It's like her Starfleet image,
right? Yeah,
file.
Exactly.
She's just in her security uniform,
smiling nicely,
like at ease, with her hands behind her back, just
right.
Like, yeah.
And they're like, "Why do you have this?" And Data's like, "I was intimate with her."
That's gross.
It's like, you are kind of human, Data, but you're also kind of a creep, so we're still going to dismantle you.
Yeah.
So anyways, next up we had, Troy. Now she's super sweaty. She goes to engineering because that's where Riker is. And she makes no bones about the fact that she wants to bone now. She goes up to him and says, Imzadi, do me. Riker's like, dude, I'm not, this is a very serious situation right here. McDougal has no idea what she's doing. I'm pretty sure she's not qualified to be chief engineer. I'm supervising her because she can't even get Wes's force field down.
No, she's terrible.
Yeah, she's not good at all. And Riker isn't much better. Like, he's a commander. I don't know if he came up. I guess he came up in the command structure, not the engineering structure. But neither of them can figure it out.
They should have some fundamental understanding of tractor beams or something. But also, why can they not just transport into the area that Wes is in, like past the force field that he has up? Why is that not an option?
Why is there not a circuit breaker for just that panel of that area of power? Like, you'd think it was go, okay, let's walk in there and take this kid down. I don't know. So anyways, Riker takes away Troy, and she's like all into him. Crusher tries her formula from the original Enterprise on Geordi, and it doesn't work because he starts complaining about seeing rainbows, about not being able to see rainbows. And it's supposed to have an immediate effect, and it doesn't. So she's like, crap. Riker brings Troy to sickbay. He touches Crusher and passes on the disease to her. Again, he kind of touches her in an unnatural way. In a very, I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since I've worked in an actual office. You work in an office. How often do you touch your coworkers? Never, right?
It's super inappropriate.
It's not.
I was watching this episode, and the last time I had sexual harassment training a couple months ago, it's hard for them to show clips from media, these of recent shows and stuff,
right,
that explicitly show sexual harassment, because somebody is so keyed on it being a bad thing to show or to portray, that it's hard to pull from current sitcoms that really show it and drive it home and stuff. So they showed a clip of the Mary Tyler Moore show of inappropriate talk during the course of a job interview.
Yeah, okay.
But I was watching this and I was like, boy, they should probably just show this entire episode of how not to act in a professional setting.
Right, exactly. Because people are just touching each other left and right.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's not like they do that in subsequent episodes. You don't see Riker going up to Crusher and touching her on the neck while she's looking at her computer.
I mean, I guess the suggestion would be that once somebody is infected with the virus or the condition or whatever it is, that's what makes them want to touch somebody to spread it.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, that could be.
It's still not really driven home very well.
And nobody goes, why would you, don't do that. Don't touch me.
Well, once they link it to the original show, what happened in the original show, that happened because the crew was under the effects of a star or whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a virus or something that was transmitted.
Right.
They're saying it's the same thing, but it's somewhat different.
Yeah, it's transmitted. Because there is definitely the assumption that, because every time somebody's touched and they're infected, they make a noise. It goes, bleep.
Yes.
So you know that person, oh God, they've got it now. Next up, let's see here. Picard contacts Wes, who's down on engineering, and he tries to tell him, dude, I need command of the ship. You need to give it back. Wes isn't cool with that, and Picard explains to Wes, you're drunk. And once Wes realizes that he's drunk, he's super happy. And he says, is this what being drunk is? I feel strange, but also good. And I'm like, that's a pretty apt comparison. It's a pretty good description of being drunk.
Sure.
I feel strange, but also good.
Yeah.
Picard tells Wesley he needs a tractor beam on the Tsiolkovsky. Wes gets excited, says, oh, tractor beams, that's totally my thing. And then he cuts Picard off the communication, and gets to work on some shit. At that point, kind of comedically, the ensign at navigation just gets up and leaves.
Yeah.
You see the look on his face during this whole sequence, and he just gets totally distracted by something just in his head, and he's like, all right, I'm out of here. So I don't know what that's all about.
I guess, is he doing the responsible thing? Like, he's like, oh, I'm infected. I got to get myself out of here. Or is he just like, oh, man, I got a raging heart on right now. I got to go slam it in the door a couple times or something.
He's like, man, like my fellow crew members keep on blowing up my email saying how much sex they're having right now.
Yeah.
Fuck that. He's like, I'm just going to act like I'm drunk.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
Nobody touches me.
Nobody ever touches me.
I'm not infected, but I'm going to pretend like I am because everybody's drunk. They're not keeping track.
We all have a license here to do this, so I'm just going to play along with it. Worf, who also is actually seemingly the only person no one touches.
Yeah.
Probably for good reason.
I don't know. I don't think anybody ever touches Chief Engineer McDougal either, do they? She seems largely unaffected, but she's definitely an idiot. She's a terrible engineer.
Like, I would hate to see how bad she is if she was drunk.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that, though. Anyways, he tells Picard, hey, so I have written here the star's about to collapse, so I guess it's a star.
Yeah.
So then Riker and McDougal are trying to mess with Wes's force field, still to no avail. Wes locks a tractor beam on the Tsiolkovsky. Data comes in, and after having banged Tasha Yar, he's drunk as fuck. Picard, which doesn't make a lick of sense.
Any sense. They sort of try to make it make sense because they have Data say a little something later on to Crusher, like, "Oh, I'm more like humans than you think.
Yeah,
I have pores.
Yeah,
I have bodily fluids, or
right.
I have
he has like some sort of nutrient bath in his
nutrient
brain
baths and nano lubricants or whatever that sort of mimic bodily fluids.
Yeah,
but it still just doesn't make any sense. There's no real biology to
so
Data.
Like in the episode where everybody gets addicted to the video game that Wes brings on board, they deactivate Data because they know that he wouldn't be susceptible to the addiction of the video game.
Sure.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't go the same route here, although I guess it's just funnier to see Data. I mean, there's a lot of good comedy bits with drunk Data. I mean, it's silly as hell.
Yeah.
They never do it again. But whenever Data acts out of character, like for the remainder of the series, it's always interesting. It's always fun.
Sure.
It's fun to see Brent Spiner having fun with it.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Next, Crusher asks Picard to join her in the ready room. She is obviously messed up. She starts like unzipping her shirt thing.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is, but it's also pretty amusing.
Yeah.
Because there is that sort of, there's that weird awkwardness that's still in the air about Picard having brought her dead husband home that time.
And it's, I mean, still, like I said before, it's they're having fun with it.
Yeah, the actors totally are.
Totally having
and
fun.
You know what's funny? I actually read this too. Interesting little bit of trivia here. Apparently, one of these scenes of Crusher being drunk is what she auditioned. Was her part of her audition.
Okay.
And she was under the assumption, because of that audition, that her role would have more comedy to it because she had always enjoyed doing comedy roles originally. I don't know if that led to her season 2 departure, if that was a her thing or if it was the producer's thing.
My understanding of her season 2 departure was that she left to do a comedy movie.
Oh, okay.
If I recall correctly, it was a baseball comedy with Jim Belushi.
That's awesome.
I forget the name of it.
Is it the one where
Mr. Baseball?
Where he goes to Japan?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I
I
think you're right about it. I think she was in that. So anyways, at that point, the star collapses. Oh, Worf mentions to Riker that Picard and Data are both drunk. Riker doesn't take a second. He's not like, wait, Data? Did you say Data? He's a machine. He was just like, okay, fine. I'll deal with it. The star collapses. Picard has kind of an issue saying what needs to be done because he's drunk. Picard is a very confused drunk.
Yeah.
Lots of people are horny drunks. Lots of people are funny drunks. He's a thoroughly confused drunk. He does not know how to do anything.
No, yeah, but he's also got a little spring to his stuff.
Yeah,
he keeps on doing little dances.
Yeah, he's kind of It is. It's charming. Worf tries to leave. He tries to get them the hell out of there, but he's locked out of the controls. And the new problem is there's a big hunk of star shit that's heading towards the Enterprise then that brings our final conflict. Big hunk of star shit. McDougal finally gets the force field down. Surprise, surprise, on her own.
It takes her way too long.
Far too long.
To outwit this 15-year-old kid.
Yeah, although it is kind of cute how once she does it, she totally has mom face and she's going to take his toy away.
Yeah.
That was kind of cute. She does that. The idiot assistant engineer is sitting there like a child.
Super drunk, playing with isolinear chips like they're Legos.
He's just like tossing them up and down like that.
You wouldn't even play with Legos like that.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't know what you would
I don't
play with
know
like
what
that.
you play with where you're just throwing something up and down and watching it fall. Oh, man. Anyways, she's like, this is a mess. I can't replace all these chips back where they belong in time. And Wes says, well, Data can do it. That dude's hella quick. He can do that. So they're like, okay. Riker picks up Data, and they're like, come on, let's go to engineering. Riker is actually a fairly productive drunk.
Yeah.
Like, he's not fully... It's not until, like, a moment later that he really starts sweating.
Yeah.
He never acts drunk, though. I wonder if he just sweats under pressure. Because he was like, oh, this can't happen to me now. But it's like, Riker, you seem fine. Like, besides the fact that you're just sweaty.
Maybe he just has a higher tolerance. He seems like a kind of guy who
Yeah.
can party, so maybe it's just like it takes
point.
longer to creep up on him.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Oh, man. So I always like pointing this out because we go from Riker moving out off the bridge with Data to go to engineering. Go to commercial, come back from commercial. Riker is in engineering with Data. They're just arriving. However, we get the voiceover exposition log, Riker's log, where he says, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And then you pointed out, when did he record this log?
Like, ostensibly in the turbo lift on the way to engineering, he was like, oh, it's time to record a log.
He's like, this might go bad. I'm going to let everybody know what happened. And maybe you can just say, hey, computer, start recording. It would be great if Data was in the background going, la-di-da, I'm so drunk. Anyways, it's like, Data, shut up. I'm trying to do a log right now.
Trying to do a log. He had to try to record that 3 or 4 times.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Data kept on seeing.
They finally get there. He pushes him out into engineering, closes the door for like 30 seconds and records a log. He's like, okay, we're good. Anyways, Data starts jamming in the chips. And Riker says, Data, how long is this going to take? Are we good? And Data says, no, we're not good at all. We're totally going to die because this is not going to be in time. Then we get this extra comedic scene with Crusher and Picard. He shows up in sickbay and he does this little skip thing. And they share some really silly banter. But Crusher acknowledges she has a serum. Mm-hmm. It's ready to go. She's like, what was I going to do with this? Where was I going to take this? But it's done. It's ready to go. Next up, Data still being too slow with the thing. Wes realizes that he's got his repulsor beam, or he's like really happy that he made a repulsor beam. Riker realized that he's infected, and then Wes puts it together that he could translate the repulsor beam that he made into the Enterprise. Like he can use the repulsor beam to push the Tsiolkovsky into this hunk of spaceship shit. And then give them a couple extra minutes, which they need to get out of there.
Yeah, there's a chunk of the star that collapsed hurtling towards them. And Wes has figured out that he can put the Tsiolkovsky in the path.
Right.
And give them a few more minutes to let Data finish inserting the isolinear chips.
At this point, McDougal says, there's no way we have time to figure out how to get your schematics in your little device into the Enterprise's computer to reroute the power. And he's like, just imagine it in your head. And he starts like mapping it out on the little diagram of the Enterprise. I would imagine if this was Chief O'Brien, he would have been like, Wes, that's a great idea. Let me do this. And it'll be done. McDougal, on the other hand, is like, there's no possible way we can map that out in time.
At this point, this is where McDougal becomes the worst engineer.
Yeah, pretty much. We've ever witnessed
on any Star Trek show, really.
Yeah.
Because she, again, seems to be unaffected by the virus. Nobody's touched her. She seems to have her wits about her.
Yeah.
And she is telling this 15-year-old kid who's drunk, who's still intoxicated. Wes has not had the serum administered yet.
Right, yeah.
There's no way to do that. We can't do that. We're going to die. She's resolved herself to death. And the entire crew.
Yeah.
And this drunk 15-year-old kid is like, no. Give me 30 seconds. I got it. It's fine.
Yeah. He just starts like, just put them here, to here, to here, to here.
Yeah.
So anyways, but that's sort of the first glimpse. I mean, we saw it kind of on the bridge when he knew all the schematics and stuff, but this is the first glimpse we get of Wesley Crusher as Wunderkind.
Yeah.
As, super smart guy, as he starts reprogramming the ship stuff. It's also one of the main complaints that I remember people having about Wesley in the first place is that how many times does Wes get to save the ship because he's so smart? But I don't know. I thought it was a decent. I was always more disappointed in Wes when he became sort of an older teenager and he had all the mishaps with like Starfleet Academy in that episode when Picard was yelling at him and then he yelled back. I was always kind of bummed out when Wes turned to be kind of an underachiever in the end.
Shitty teenager.
Like he should have set the record for like youngest Starfleet captain with all the potential he had.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the way they handle that character. I think they started him out too.
You're right.
Too heavily Wonder Kid type.
Yeah.
And then I think they tried to correct it a little bit too much later in the later years by pulling him back and being like, no, he's a shitty teen.
Yeah.
Whereas
they
could have been a little bit more even-handed about it.
Yeah.
Had some glimmers of promise in him, and then really driven home the fact that he would turn into a great officer and everything later.
He eventually, so after he went on his little sojourn with the Traveler at the end of the series, he came back, apparently, so according to like both sort of the extended universe stuff, I forget what they call it, but like the novels and stuff, I think he ended up as chief engineer of Riker's ship, the Titan, because he was in the scene in Starfleet uniform at the wedding of Riker and Troy in the last movie.
Oh, sure. And
I think there was a deleted scene where he said, "Yeah, I'm going to report to Riker's ship too." So Riker was like keeping it all in the family. It was kind of cool. So next up we had let's see here. Oh, Crusher gave Geordi the serum and it worked immediately. He said, "Man, I feel like $1 million. My head is all clear." Didn't give any apologies. Picard goes around injecting everybody with the serum, including Data, who immediately starts speeding up, and they do the thing where they undercrank or overcrank. It's undercrank, overcrank. What is it?
When they undercrank it, then
fast motion.
Undercrank it means that it looks faster.
Okay,
shooting fewer frames.
Yeah, there you go.
Per second.
So he speeds up his shit. Wes initiates a repulsor beam aimed at the Tsiolkovsky, which intercepts the hunk of space shit. All those lives now cannot be buried, or all those bodies cannot be buried. They're all going to be space flotsam.
Yeah.
And the Enterprise gets out of the way just in time. And so Wes saves the day. Picard injects Wesley, gives him a death stare. He's like, "You're a little shit." Riker and Data give him props. Mm-hmm. So still, Picard cannot stand Wesley. A couple notes, and that's the end of the episode. A couple notes on this. Oh, and there was one kind of cute moment where Tashiar goes up to Data and says, "I'm going to say this one time. It never happened."
Yeah.
Data actually looks kind of heartbroken.
A little bit.
He was like, "Dude, I thought we had something." Like, that's kind of insensitive for her to say that. Mm-hmm. I feel like she should have been like, "Had you done that before?" No? Okay, well, listen. Shouldn't have happened. It was really, you're great. You are fully functional. That's awesome. However, it was a one-time thing. Instead, she goes up to him very, kind of crudely and says, "Never happened." Man, that's a big moment for somebody.
Yeah.
He's like, how?
He lost his virginity.
He's like, because I think he's like, from when he was activated until that point, I think he's around 25 to 30 years old. So, like, it took him that long to have, like, a physical connection with another human being.
Yeah.
And she says, "Never happened."
It's harsh.
Yeah, man. So there were some takes on this episode that I thought were kind of interesting. In a 2006 review, Wesley himself, Will Wheaton, gave this episode a D+. And the quote here was, "The Naked Now has some genuinely funny moments, but it was only the second time that audience had seen us, and this episode was not the best way to introduce the audience to a new show with a new cast, especially when we all knew we were standing on the shoulders of giants." That's an interesting take on it. Let's see here. I mentioned the Beverly Crusher thing. Denise Crosby, Tasha Yar, did not cite this as her favorite TNG episode, but acknowledged that In the moment when Tasha Yar seductively invites Data into her quarters, it includes her most famous scene as Yar. So, she feels that she was most well known. Yar was best well known as taking Data's virginity. She observed Brent Spiner and I always have a twinkle in our eye when we talk about it. So that's kind of cute.
Yeah.
I like that. And there's one little note here. Jonathan, according to Will Wheaton, Jonathan Frakes, Commander Riker, sharply criticized this episode, going so far as to call it the worst segment of The Next Generation he ever did, saying he felt, quote, totally ashamed by it. However, while recalling the first season during a time near the end of the series, Frakes noted on how much greater the chances the writers had taken on the show than they did at the end of the series. In contrasting Skin of Evil, which he described as absurd, I think that was the one where Tasha Yar died, he described The Naked Now as great as far as it being the episode which we've never done anything quite like, where everyone got drunk and horny. That was risky. That comes from Trek, The Next Generation crew book. So, a couple interesting takes there.
Yeah.
On The Naked Now.
I mean, I made the point yesterday when we were discussing this that you couldn't take that bigger risk.
Later on.
Later on.
The characters had far too much history.
Yeah.
And that would be change. Like for Data all of a sudden to have sex with Troy or something, or even I mean, you know what they kind of did in that season 5 episode where they all forgot who they were and Riker just banged everybody.
True. That's a much better episode too.
And it's a way better episode. Yeah. And I really actually like how they dealt with that whole scenario with Riker having sex with both Troy and Ensign Rowe.
Yeah.
It was really, really well done. And this is kind of everybody was just like, okay, well, whatever. I mean, it would have been kind of interesting to see how everybody else on the ship dealt with the morning after. You know, it's like Tasha Yar goes up Data. It never happened. But there's still 1,000 more people on the ship.
Yeah.
All who have to wake up and do the walk of shame, basically.
Yeah.
So,
well, it doesn't really get into how far the conditioner virus or whatever it was affects everybody on the ship, if it goes, how far
That's
it goes.
true.
Is it just crew people, or does it extend to all the civilians on the ship?
Right.
They don't really get into that.
Yeah.
And I think part of that would be uncomfortable because
because there's kids.
Because there's kids on the ship.
The sample size, if you look at, I mean, unless there was maybe Picard had some orders printed out where all the families and all the civilians had to stay in their quarters to make sure they don't get this, although there's no evidence to suggest that he had that in mind. But all the shots where you do see the lower crew members, they're all fucking. They're all rubbing up on each other.
all over each other.
So at least in the places where work is happening, this thing is pretty widespread. So I don't know. It was a fun episode. It was really silly. I think out of context, if I just saw it, if I had just seen Encounter in Farpoint, then I just saw this, I'd be like, well, this is an odd direction for the series to be going.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, after 150 episodes or however many there were, I don't know. It's a fun episode. Like Frank said, everybody got drunk and horny. That's fun.
Sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's it for this episode of the Four Lights Podcast. We're gonna build a set here in Jeff's garage, and so we need some fan art. Don't care what of, don't care who of. Star Trek related, obviously. But you can send it to us at Twitter. I'm at MF Steve here. What's your Twitter handle?
I don't remember.
All right. Just send it to me at MF Steve here, or any of the going in. I don't know. There's a million places you can send it to me. I guess just DM it to me at MF Steve here. That's good. I don't know. We got to set up something for the podcast. A hashtag or a Twitter account or something.
Okay.
I don't know. A MySpace account?
Is MySpace a thing? Is that a thing?
I don't think so.
Friendster. We'll do a Friendster.
That's definitely still a thing. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you guys later.